Fame, money, and success is known to reveal people's true character and intentions, and pop stars especially are proof of this. They are known as the most attractive it boys and it girls. They have money, everyone wants to either be with them, be like them, or both. It seems that they have the world in their hands, and this can make them very arrogant, cocky, self-centered, demanding, and simply mean. Both male and female stars can have these ways, but females have become more infamous for this behavior, which is where we got the term diva, which is a woman usually in show business who is hard to please, demanding, and self-centered. Also, diva can be a positive term, meaning a woman who has phenomenal skill and talent as a performer with a large stage presence and is admired for beauty and glamour, like Beyonce. There have been many women who have been called divas, but there are just a few, actually just two, that have been called the biggest divas in show business ever. And these women are the glamorous Diana Ross and the late iconic Aretha Franklin. Diana Ross was born on March 26, 1944 in the Brewster Douglas Projects of Detroit. She was a middle child that always yearned for attention and to be loved. She initially had plans to become a fashion designer, but when she met three school friends at the age of 15 named Betty McGlown, Florence Ballard, and Mary Wilson, her life will unknowingly at the time be changed forever. The four girls decided to create a singing group that would be called the Primettes, the sister group to the male group, the Primes, who would later become fellow iconic stars, the Temptations. The girls auditioned for the future iconic record label, Motown Records, which at the time was one of the hottest labels out, with top-selling artists like Smokey Robinson and the Marvelettes. But the founder, Berry Gordy, told the girls they were too young to come back when they graduated. And they did exactly that. Once they graduated, they auditioned and signed to Motown Records and going from a quartet to a trio with a new name, the Supremes. They were not an instant success at first, releasing multiple flop singles, a flop album, and began to be called the No-Hit Supremes by other successful Motown artists. About 2 years passed and they eventually struck gold when the Diana Ross-led single, Where Did Our Love Go, reached number 1 on the Hot 100. And by this time, it was no turning back for the Supremes. The only way was up. They released more and more hits and more hit albums, and by the end of the 60s, they had achieved 12 number 1 hits, the most for any girl group ever to this day. They became Motown's biggest artist of the decade, the biggest girl group of the decade, and the second biggest group at all next to the Beatles. They were international superstars and are now iconic figures in black culture, pop culture, and American history, breaking down racial barriers in the music industry. Diana eventually outgrew the group and became a solo artist in the 70s, and her solo stardom only grew, with her starring in movies like Mahogany and Lady Sings the Blues, having many number 1 singles and albums, and becoming a number 1 superstar and pop icon, and an inspiration and influence to many artists including Michael Jackson, Beyonce, and Madonna, and many more. Diana Ross is an iconic trailblazer for black artists and women everywhere, but we are not here just to talk about her success. We are here to discuss her diva ways. Disclaimer: everything I mentioned in this video is alleged. Some may be true and some may not be true, but it's all alleged. First, Diana Ross has been rumored to have taken Florence's lead spot by sleeping with important men at Motown. Florence actually started the group and was leading the songs at first, but Diana, she allegedly slept with one of the writers of Holland Doja Holland. His name was Brian Holland, and they were a writing group that would eventually write all 12 of their number 1 hits. It is said that Diana Ross purposely slept with Brian so he would give her all the attention and he would write the songs for her as lead. And he did exactly that, making Diana Ross the lead singer on all of the Supreme hits. Now, Diana Ross made the biggest power move when she began an affair with Motown's founder and boss, Berry Gordy, who was married at the time. Her sleeping with Berry also helped bring more attention and favoritism to Diana Ross as the leader instead of Florence Ballard. This move was shady, but it helped make Diana Ross the leader and the star of Motown. Diana showed her diva ways even more when she slept with Berry Gordy, then demanded that his wife call her Mrs. Ross while she was the Supreme chauffeur for tours, and Miss Gordy obeyed. Like, who even does that? First, she is older than you. Second, you took her husband. Third, you make her call you by your last name unnecessarily. Like, she was really tripping. But there's more wild things that Diana did to bring others down and lift herself up. Motown used to have big tours called the Motown Revue, where all artists on the label would tour together to promote their music. While on tour one night, Diana was scheduled to perform before fellow girl group Martha and the Vandellas. Diana and the Supremes went into their dressing room hours before the show and had her people go and buy the same dresses that the Vandellas were scheduled and planned to perform with. Donna and the Supremes performed in those dresses before the Vandellas, and Martha notices that they have the same dress. But by this time, it is too late. Now, the Vandellas have to go out and perform with those same dresses, and it looked like they had copied the Supremes, and they were highly embarrassed because it just made them look unoriginal and tacky, like they were copying the Supremes. Other artists also recalled Diana Ross doing the same thing, including legendary vocalist Patti LaBelle, when she was a part of her group, the Bluebells, in the 1960s. Gladys Knight spoke on her encounter with Diana, and it was nothing nice. Gladys stated that while her and her group Gladys Knight and the Pips were opening for the Supremes, Diana became jealous that they were getting a great reaction from the audience. They were getting standing ovations from the crowd, and the crowd really loved the Gladys Knight and the Pips. But you know, Diana Ross was not going for that. No one could ever be a bigger star than her. So, she used her power. She called Berry Gordy and demanded that they be sent home immediately in the middle of the tour, and they were sadly sent home. Diana held no prejudice with her diva ways. She made sure that it was obvious on who was the true star with her group mates, Florence and Mary. First, they all shared the same dressing room before shows. That's how it was when the group first started. Then, as their success grew, then Diana requested that she got her own separate dressing room, which is so on brand. This obviously hurt her group mates, but the queen gets what the queen wants. Miss Ross was even known to get physically violent sometimes, with the flight attendant after he recalled him getting slapped all across the face by Diana Ross after she attempted to smuggle her dog into a plane. Many recall that the diva did not allow eye contact from workers, with her quote, "avert the eyes," becoming a popular saying around her. Diana even had her 9-year-old daughter keeping people in check, as her daughter Tracy Ellis Ross was always seen carrying a notebook and pencil when with her mama, jotting down anything, even the smallest thing that Diana would think was wrong to report to her later. One of, if not Diana's worst diva moments, was at the sad funeral of fellow group member Florence Ballard. Diana was said to have marched into church in all black, where her bodyguards surrounded her, long after the service had started, stealing a seat in the front row that was reserved just for the family, and she made a dramatic scene, falling out and crying in the middle of the church for everyone to see. She was then booed by funeral attendees, and one funeral attendee named Mark Bigo stated, "I have never seen such a choreographed display of drama in my life." She won't even let Florence be the star of her own funeral, and that's sad. There's more stories of Diana's demeaning, demanding ways, but if we were to talk about all of the things she did, we'd be talking for weeks. Now, our next iconic diva that had her ways was the Queen of Soul, Aretha Franklin. Aretha Louise Franklin was born on March 25, 1942, to C.L. Franklin and Barbara Franklin. Though she was born in Memphis, she grew up in Detroit, Michigan, a block away from fellow iconic diva Diana Ross. Aretha's father was a very successful pastor who lived a very scandalous lifestyle, but I'll leave him for another video. Aretha's gift of music was apparent at a young age, singing solos at her father's church by the age of 7 and learning to play piano by ear. She was a phenomenal piano player and actually never learned to read music. But anytime she sang and played, she would wow audiences, leaving them feeling transcended with her powerful magnetic voice. Her father began to take her on the road with him on his church tours for her to perform at a lot of churches. And during these tours, her father would host huge parties that were not for kids. There would be illegal substances, alcohol, and sexual activities going on all around her. And Aretha, being exposed to these things, started to grow up fast. She had her first child in 1955 at the tender age of 12 years old. And actually, a lot of people believe her father was the one to impregnate her because he had a sick history of inappropriate relationships with little girls, and the father of the child was never really discussed or known like that during Aretha's life. But this did not slow down Aretha nor her father, as he secured her a record deal and she pursued a career in music full-time. At 18, Aretha moved to New York and signed a record deal with Columbia Records, and she got to work instantly, working with legendary coaches and choreographers like Charlie Atkins to prepare her for pop performances. Though she was diligent and made great music, she could not attain a hit song, let alone an album. Eventually, she recorded 9 albums in 6 years during her time with Columbia Records. After no success at Columbia for half a decade, she signed to Atlantic Records in 1967, and everything changed. She finally became the star that she wanted to be. With her new album, I Never Loved a Man the Way That I Love You, it became a hit. And she released the biggest female anthem of all time, and according to Rolling Stone, the greatest song of all time, titled Respect. This song automatically became a hit, going to #1 and placed Aretha Franklin in pop music history forever, and it is a staple of female empowerment and the civil rights movement to this day. Now, Aretha Franklin was a million-selling platinum superstar and had been named the undisputed queen of soul. But she wasn't just known for her iconic soulful voice and songs. She was also known and feared for her queen bee take-no-mess diva reputation. Let's see if her diva antics compare to Diana Ross. Aretha was very demanding and could be difficult to work with, and she loved to throw shade, especially at other female artists. She also was very upfront about the stuff she thought about herself and other people, and no one could stop her.
A diva?
No. Would I be a diva?
Broke. I have no money problems, believe me.
So I'm thinking,
No
are you
money,
broke?
yes, no money problems whatsoever. That's Tony Braxton. That's not me.
What is the rest of us girls?
Do you think I'm gullible?
I think that you can be.
Well,
With the right man.
yeah, no. I saw some pictures not very attractive or flattering.
But she was backing you up, though, right?
She was in the background.
Oh, I thought she doesn't tour with you or anything like that.
No.
Oh.
No, definitely not.
Taylor Swift.
Okay, great gowns. Lies, lies, and more lies.
Oh, and if you were a musician in Aretha's band, you were literally required to sweat. Aretha demanded that air conditioning was not allowed in rehearsal spaces or dressing rooms to preserve her voice, and you would be stupid to even complain because you would be fired. One time, Aretha was performing at the Apollo, and in the middle of the song, she said, "I feel air," and walked off the stage immediately. This one was pretty smart, but Aretha's always demanded $25,000 cash before any show, which is a small portion of her whole fee. Aretha also never stayed above any hotel's 5th floor. Aretha was known to be very insecure by people around her. She threw tantrums and was very, very angry and jealous for other artists, female artists' success. She saw Barbra Streisand as competition, and she was also jealous of Diana Ross for her success, especially when Diana Ross starred as Billie Holiday in Lady Sings the Blues, because it was such a massive hit. Franklin then became jealous when Roberta Flack started doing duets with Donny Hathaway and started seeing a lot of success, causing her to be angry about them being on the same label. Then, when Natalie Cole became a star in 1975 and won the Grammy for Best Female R&B Song, she ended Aretha's streak after Aretha had won the award for 8 consecutive years, and this made Aretha livid. Aretha showed her insecurity even towards iconic, trailblazing, phenomenal queen of rock and roll, Tina Turner. Beyonce called Tina Turner the queen during her tribute performance, and Aretha hated it, stating how Beyonce made false claims. Aretha stated to her sister, "If Queen Elizabeth gets to be the queen for the duration of her life, why not Queen Aretha?" Aretha was known for canceling shows consistently, whenever she wanted to, and not upholding duties she signed up for, and just like Ross, she demanded to be called Miss Franklin. But not by random workers of hers, but other stars like the legendary Luther Vandross. Vandross said she started a whole fight with him because she wanted to call her Miss Franklin during the phone call. In 1989, Whitney Houston had been the top female artist in the world and recorded a duet with Aretha and stated Aretha entered the studio as Queen Aretha, the original diva. But Aretha snapped back saying, "The Whitney Houston lacked wisdom and maturity as a recording artist. She really did not care who she was coming for. She was coming for everybody, no matter how big or small you thought you was." Aretha was a woman who loved control, so she would constantly fire and hire people for no reason. In conclusion, though they have been divas, hard to work with, demanding, and rude, Diana's and Aretha's impact on pop culture and music is undeniable. They are both two icons whose legacies will stand for generations.